Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this very special initiative by the Economic Times and Volopay. And let me try and just put in very briefly what the idea was. Everyone's aware and everyone knows the way technology is impacting our lives, whether we are companies, whether we are individuals, whether we are large or small enterprises. And the role of the CFO is changing and changing every day. Trust the CFOs to tell you what all they've been doing. So the conversation and a series, we're doing this series with Volopay across the country, multiple cities, and trying to talk about various aspects of this change as it happens and what challenges it is posing for the CFOs, what opportunities it is giving up or giving the CFOs in terms of the emergence of the new paradigm driven by technology. And of course, for tomorrow's CFOs, for people who are aspiring to be tomorrow's CFOs, what does this mean? What new skills they will need for the world of tomorrow? So all that and more we'll be looking forward to doing this series of conversations. And as we head, today's the second leg of this conversation. As we go to the other legs in different cities, we are going to Pune, we are going to Hyderabad, we are going to be in Mumbai. And of course, you will read about it in the paper as well. You will also get a sense of what all, and we'll try to make it as detailed as possible. You'll get to hear or get to read what all the CFOs need to do and what all tomorrow's CFOs need to do. So look forward to this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you indeed.
Thank you for the invitation. First of all, I was surprised as a operating, so always I have done operations from last 18 years. So what I will do in CFO conference. But Ashutosh and has briefed, hey, you have to give your perspective, how you see things from the operating as well as a co-founding and share your journey. But I must say that for a startup, these are the funding winter and CFO is more important than CEO. So this is the right time to share the perspective. How everybody is asking how to do more with the less, where you can save the cost. So CFOs are more important this time. In my journey, and I would like to share about my journey, and definitely I don't have a technicalities, but I understand how in a journey what's important, when the founders' intuitions are more important, when more resources are important, when CFOs has to be more, our financial has to be more organized in a journey, because I have seen from angels to in Flipkart, when I left, we have raised money at a $15 billion. Definitely now it's around, I don't know how much, $40 billion company. It's one of the largest company in India for sure. And definitely the second journey when I have started Udaan in 2016 with Bavo and Amod, then we have a similar kind of very exciting journey, and we have seen lots of growth. But as I said, when you are growing and how to balance the growth and the financial discipline, I think those are the time changing your intuitions, how to challenge your muscle memories, somebody who has to come and make the importance, say growth is important or financial discipline is more important, and how to balance both of it. But in current environment, people are saying that even if you are not growing, it's fine. But how you are spending your money and where you are spending money, that's more important. And from founder to investor to the market, they are more interested into your financial discipline. Current time, 7-8 months back, everybody was asking for how fast you are growing, what's your market share, this year how much where you will expand. Now everybody is asking, hey, what's your burn? Reduce your burn. Even if you are not growing, we are fine. Increase your runway. So that's why I think I'm saying that CFO is very important, especially in this environment. So as I said that, let me share my journey. So when we have started Flipkart, definitely we were not having any experience in how to take care of the retail. And that time I'm talking about the pre-GST, where the indirect tax was very complex, especially how to send stuff from one state to the other state. Taxation, every state has a VAT, has a different kind of challenge. Some state has advantage, less, on some of the item they have a VAT which is less, especially I still remember in places like Rajasthan and some places, 2 or 3 places where the GST on the smart mobile phone was significantly less in comparison to other states. So even without having any logic where to keep the inventory, so much of taxation benefit, you have to keep that inventory there. So I think that was the era where we were opening small warehouses all across the India and then doing the reconciliation of those taxes. I think it was a nightmare. And this conference, and I have seen the evolutions. So earlier our understanding was CFO is more like a financial controller, taking care of all the taxes, taking care of all the, like reconciling the book, doing the audit. But the meaning of CFO in that journey was changing. And it had changed significantly. And I have seen firsthand that evolution, and I will share that. When the business finance has come into the play, they were side by side partnering with the business, building the business, challenging the ideas, deciding the budget, having that plan, controlling the analytics, controlling the ERP, approving, controlling the data. So now if you'll ask, especially in startup, who's the CFO? I think the person who understand business in depth, challenge technology, asking for more with the less, asking for our challenging the investment philosophy. Well, like as a startup guy, we think we can do everything, but bringing that balance, buy versus build, all those things comes when you deeply understand that business. And we definitely, that was the term, we call it business finance, where analytics resides, where they have the merger and acquisition, and also CFO is like one of the most powerful position we see, because especially in startup, they represents investors, because they always in touch with the investor. They map their sentiments, because as an operator we start executing, but investors share their perspective with the and their financial acumen with the CFOs. Hey, you should balance your burn and all. So that's why I'm saying that without CFO, especially at some certain level of scale, it's very hard to build the company. I haven't seen that. And in that prospect, I'll share one of the, when we built the Flipkart, and all of us were like kind of operator and technology. So Sachin, Benny were building product, and there were computer science and the systems and all. But we were lagging in one field, which was in finance. And thanks to one of the great investor at that time, who has brought a resource like Kalyan. Currently he's the CEO. He has started the journey with the Flipkart on secondment from the investor side as a CFO, because we are not able to bring the CFO. And I have seen it's a mindset. And today I must say that he is one of the best CEO in this country, because running that kind of complex e-commerce business in this country, I think you need to understand the financial aspect of it. And we have learned a lot in last 10, 12 years journey with him. So what I'm trying to also say that might be in his initial journeys, where we call it Series A, Series B, you'll not feel that much of requirement of the financial discipline. But going beyond that, and I must say that you should start early, the financial discipline. And people can say that because of the environment is like that, that's why you are giving that suggestion. Otherwise, you would have also said that, hey, grow faster, because That's our muscle memory. I've invested in almost more than 100 of the company as an angel investor. And we always emphasis on, hey, why you are not growing? But might be, but now we have to understand, when you don't have a resource and a tough time, nobody supports you. So bringing that, developing a muscle memory in the early stage and early journey of the company is very important. And that's why CFO, I see there is one of the most important aspect in the journey, especially in the changing context of how to apply technology, how to balance your law of the land, because they have a lots of things. What is their structuring? Which structure is efficient? I can give an example in Udaan, like we have a lots of input tax, and government, we are sharing the data with the government. And the government, you have to at the same time also make them understand, hey, how you are seeing the things, how they are interpreting the things, what you are interpreting, what's our interpretation might be, their interpretations are very different. And when things goes in hundreds of crore as an input tax, government will not going to sit idle and see your logic. They wanted to see that hard proof. They will go with your audit. They will go with all the documents, transaction, partners, which category, how you are defining the category, because every category has different kind of taxation. Why you are bringing this category in this taxation bracket? So I have gone through those grinding as a founder, but I see most of the pressures are with the CFO, because he makes you understand how to sit with them, make them understand why it's right, what's wrong, making that promise, I will correct the system, correcting our ERP, things like that. So, but indirect taxation, what it was prior to 1st July 2017, and now I think there is no comparison. So I'm not comparing, but there are other complexity has increased when the kind of business we are building, from the traditional to the tech businesses. I think, and from the CFO angle, I'm only guessing, and definitely we have a CFO, so I can say that bringing those aspects of investment philosophy, because when we say that, hey, what's your CAG, customer acquisition cost, and challenging those and how it should improve, showing those waterfall, challenging on the data. So I think that's the expectation rather than the expected. I think what is given, you'll take care of the audit, you'll take care of the accounting practice, you'll take care of all those things. That's given. Nobody will going to, a operator like us will not question that. Definitely you'll get a certification, you have a audit partners and all. But where we are involved deeply, how CFO is challenging all the philosophy. And it's not a pleasant conversation. But as a CFO, you have to balance lots of things, because always operator will going to say that, yaar, hum karte hain, tumhe kya malum? But I think challenging at that moment of bringing those data, practices, convincing as a partner, and deploying your team so that they can partner in every problem solving. I think that's a huge challenge. So that's where I think we can talk a lot about those incidents, but that's where I wanted to stop. Guys, I don't see without CFO who's will going to be equipped with the evolving, like all the sectors where they are adopting the technology. It's not the slam dunk same principle. It's about understanding the sector, going into the depth. If a CFO of the education tech, it's very hard for him to adjust into as a CFO of the e-commerce. Earlier might be that was not the scenario. So that's only my anticipation, and that's the experience. Thank you all of you.
It's always a pleasure speaking to the financial sector experts. Just telling a bit about myself and why I'm here. I've also done a bit of startup in government. My first startup was FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit India, which I looked at setting it up from 2005 to 2012. So the entire system, the entire data part, the red flag indicators with most of the financial players, which means the banks, the insurance company, the securities market, they had worked on that. That was the first part. And last 9 years, I've been working focusing on information management, tax collection processes of the tax department. Now, of course, looking at these e-governance initiatives, I also had opportunity to look into the GSTN solution, the evaluation, customs, NatGrid, FIU again, the next version. So all this is what is happening. So my objective of this address would be to give you an overview of what is the focus area for the government, where are we going, and probably how does it impact your function. So we just heard the CFO's interaction with the operations. So probably I'll look into how CFO's role changes with respect to what is changing from the government perspective. Just to look at, start with direct taxes. And direct taxes, there are 4 focus areas and themes which we are focusing on. The first theme being, of course, taxpayer service delivery, because we believe that if a person is willing to comply, we should make it easy for him to comply, which means how can we show him all information to the extent possible that he doesn't have a confusion. Because typically what we see is, typically a taxpayer, when he interacts with a chartered accountant or it is a CFO, they try to look into, how much should I pay taxes and what's my income? And should I report this income? And that is always a confusion, because you feel that by reporting something, you will be required to pay some more taxes. If we have data about you through third party and other information like GST, and we try to raise an issue much later, there is a huge compliance cost for you, and it is a huge cost for the department also. So the objective again is that we believe that majority of the people would want to comply if they know what is to be reported, and it is easy for them to report. That is part. So one part is, of course, the income reporting part, which is a return. But apart from that, there's a number of obligations like TDS and other things which are also happening from a corporate perspective. So what is that we have done? We have looked into this entire flow. And if you are aware, last year we went for a complete integration of our e-filing and processing system. Again, when we started 10, 12 years back, for us it was a huge challenge to look at the e-filing first. And once we started getting the returns in an electronic form, we looked at the processing aspect and tried to integrate both of them. But now in the next version, we have brought a common system. So we'll have a better communication in respect of the defects of the problems you are facing. So last year, of course, you had a bit of challenges in terms of upload and all. But this year, of course, you would have faced a much more robust system. Our speed of processing is now phenomenally better than last time. So we are able to process a return within few minutes. Still, there are a few issues we are working on. We are working on faster transmission of refund. Now, today you get a communication that refund is coming, but still 3-4 days goes. We are going for a real-time API. So a lot of real-time services now in the second round will be made available. So please keep an eye. Don't think that you have integrated. We are changing every day. And this is one department I think you'll appreciate, that where each form is revised every year. The processing logic is revised everywhere. So this is not happening in a corporate. Corporate has a normal form. And GST also is a stable, more or less stable kind of reporting. So income tax return form changes because we believe we need to collect more information. There's new taxation potential of, say, crypto. So we change the form. We also change the processing logic. Even the rates are modified. So we take some time to come up with the new utility, the form, the schemas, and the processing logic. And we also have to make sure that the entire legacy of accounting is also kept. So this is the challenge we are going through. We are trying to look at how we can make it more simpler. We also are looking at exposing a lot of APIs so that big corporates, in terms of their compliances, can integrate with us. It's not only about filing of return, but other information furnishing, how these APIs can be given to us. From an individual perspective, we're also looking at a very robust mobile app with a lot of services to be given to you. Please look into this. The payment system is completely being transformed to the next version, which means what you pay will be reflected in your account in real time. It will not be a delay of 2-3 days. It will also be used in the pre-filling. So all these things will happen, and they're happening as we go. You can pay by any channel. You can pay by UPI, by card. All these facilities are on the way. This is first theme. The second theme is we thought that we have to manage the information in a better way, that it's not enough collecting data. We have to make sure the data quality is good. So a lot of rules and logic of both data quality management and as well as the data enrichment part. So that we need to do, because apart from processing the return, the main function of department is that we need to ensure proper compliance, which means proper reporting of income by people. So for doing that, we don't want a situation that what we have as information, there is a gap in terms of what we display to you, So in that process, what we have done is, just to give you a sense, the information is not only about your return, please understand. So what you're giving to us is not only in the return about yourself, but you're also reporting information about other parties, both in your return, in your audit report, plus if you are paying in something like a dividend interest, you're also giving information as part of your TDS reporting. You're also giving information as part of a third-party reporting, which is SFT reporting. There's a huge data which is coming from the corporate entities. CFO may not be aware of the complete reporting, but I would say please look into this, because typically it is handled by a compliance team. So, but this entire information impacts the way income tax looks into your risk also. So the idea with us, what we are focusing on, that we should be in a position to process this information, what we receive from you, either in the return, any form, your audit report, your TDS information, and your third-party SFT reporting if it is so, and also get similar data from GST. So all the department, which is customs, GST, we have set up, and we have working on maturing the entire exchange agreement, which is both automated as well as request-based. I mean, automated means certain things we get from for everyone in a summary manner. But once we decide to look more detailed, we get the entire data. We can get the entire data of each bill and each invoice. So please be careful that what is being reported by you would impact your risk, would also impact the risk of other parties dealing with you. Similarly, if you're dealing with other parties whose risk is very high, it's better to at least be aware of that. So due diligence in terms of know your suppliers, know your parties, is something which would be more relevant now, since we are linking this data. And coming with this is, I don't know whether you're aware of the fact that we're also exposing APIs to third parties, which means if you're trying to get a loan from public sector bank, and where some benefit is involved, the consent of the person who is applying for loan is taken, and the entire information, limited information from the return is getting pre-filled, which means what we have done till now is pre-filling the third party into the income tax return of the person. Now what we're saying, the income tax return information will be pre-filled when you're interacting with other government department like MSME, if you're applying for something. So the asset part, everything is being pre-filled. So the income tax return becomes more and more relevant for you, because if you have made some difference in the P&L account or the classification, it will not be impacting your maybe income determination in the return, but will impact such pre-filling, which will have some kind of impact on your credit worthiness, which is being tested by a bank. So that is a kind of a consent-based exchange which is being set up, which is complementing the data exchange framework which have the other department. The third area, as I told, is to somehow show this information to everyone at the earliest. The idea is at the earliest, because typically CFOs want to know how much income, how much tax you have to pay, and that too when you are going to come at the advanced tax paying level. But when you're filing the return, it becomes something very late. So at that point of time, very difficult for someone to look into what is the information available with the income tax department. So my only advice is, please look into your new AIS 26AS, where more than 50 information types, and this is increasing every day. So in this year, we are getting more data. For example, we didn't have information about winnings and other things. So we thought, let us have every aspect, and this is the objective. Reduce this gap. If you have to look at direct taxes being substantively bigger percentage of your GDP, all income of everyone, for you as a person or you as a corporate, we should be having a sense of what is that amount, and it's better that is reflected and shown to the taxpayer. Just to give you a broad sense, all information which comes to us is really challenged, because the last 2 years we're working only to look into how do we deduplicate this data, because the way you understand data, the way we look at data, even the language used is fairly complex. Plus, the same information is getting reported from 3 sources or 2 sources. So, for example, your interest comes from a deduction perspective. It also comes from a SFT reporting perspective. So we have to deduplicate that. Dividend also comes in 2 sources. And foreign remittance comes to us from 3 methods. From an authorized dealer, and it is reported by someone who is saying, I am going to remit money outside. It comes from the authorized dealer, separate data comes, and separate purpose code comes. The value may be different because exchange rate would have changed. And then we also get some values in the profit loss account. We also get a value in the audit report filed by your auditor. So the same information could be coming in different value, different languages to us from various sources. So our idea is to make sure that we are not showing and mixing up these values. So we have something where we process and enrich the entire information, summarize it, make it very simple, like one pager for someone to look at the broader picture. The beauty of this, and this is not many countries have done this, you drill down on that summary, and please test it out. You'll see the underlying transaction. Underlying transaction entirely can be downloaded by you. And you will, the beauty is, if you have a problem in any information, you can always give feedback. And so for non-corporate, normal person, it is a mobile app. You can download AIS. Your entire transactions will be on your mobile. You can see and you can give a feedback there. And the way the system is designed is, the feedback given by you, we take we record that and say it is a value after a feedback, and that is used for pre-filling. Which means, instead of you reporting something the return and we having some information and we finding a match and asking you in scrutiny to tell me what is the gap about, we ask you to submit that information reconciliation, which you used to give in scrutiny before you file a return. So these are something, please be aware of these things. And corporate is more complex because it has the business expenses part where we have not much of visibility. But with the expansion of TDS, I think the entire profit loss account is going to come. We're also thinking, how do we make it more accurate, and how do we really use it from a risk perspective? So keep in mind these third category of changes. The fourth big area, which you will be seeing the big corporates, is we are trying to transform the entire assessment function of the income tax department. That is where I think you will be seeing in last 2 years, which means your case, the selection, the allocation to a person is automated, and it is used, we use AI, and we make sure it's not in the same state. So which means you don't have a chance to meet a person. All the more important that you have enough care in preparing the return. And if some issue is raised, it should not be normal. So the person who represents your corporate or yourself, if you say, sir, I'll manage this, it's not so easy, because now you have to give and address those issues on electronic interface 100%. And there is a video conferencing which can be used to explain, but again, the quality of response and your view should be recorded properly. So CFOs need to understand, because typically earlier days they used to give a lot of information and file it with us, and then explain, say the real thing is only this much. That is, so they should try to have summary, with every submission, explain it well. And the beauty of the benefits we are seeing in the department is, it's a team-based working. It is not one ITO deciding. So it is a ITO with a supervisor. I am principal commissioner here on heading 2 charges here. So I see the quality. Sometimes submission is very bad. It is very delayed. And it used to work earlier. When it is, you come across the table and say, I have just been late, but I'm filing in time. We have a process. So if it doesn't come in time, we then pass the order. So please, so we are seeing a lot of litigation happening, or we are taking an adverse view because the submissions are delayed. And it is because communication didn't reach them, because we are not supposed to call on phone. So please, the profile, your contact, SMS, that becomes very, very important. So we communicate on what email and SMS typically is given in the return and the profile. And then people tell the sir, we didn't know it was a CA. CA had changed. He didn't see his mail, but now the demand is there. So these are very serious challenges for us also. So we are using a centralized communication, SMS, because we feel SMS is something what people see, emails they don't see. And we also are using the mobile number being reported for a person or a corporate from the bank to be more accurate. So all these things we are doing, but still we feel it is something more of advisory, that this part also is very important. And this will result in department to come up with new opportunities. And that's where I think we have to be partners here, because once we have broken down the entire assessment function into more structured, all output of investigation is also getting captured in a very structured manner. Please understand this. So today what you are going to face with is something a lot of people are even imagining now. Search happens somewhere, other company, the person says all bogus bills were issued, income tax or GST bills, or it was an entry. All such information, even collecting earlier also. But we didn't have a very seamless system of, uploading, matching, linking. Now, every output of every investigation happening in the country, please understand this, is getting captured in a structured manner with all attached documents and flowing to each of these officers all over the country. So there is a huge difference in way income tax is handling information for last 2-3 years. And it is going to improve and become more pervasive in what we do. So if anyone says this used to happen, we can handle this, you have to rethink on this entire issue. So what is important? earlier what used to be accommodation entry was very easy to take. And we are seeing this year is huge problem. My current scrutiny cycle, 50% cases we are having only of very suspicious purchases. Not because of income tax probably, maybe because of ITC credit. ITC credit, maybe the later years is much clearer. But those, I mean, I'm seeing a huge gap in people who are, supplying, giving bills to the parties. Because see, understand one thing, since the entire data is all centrally managed and we have our engines, when we joined the department, we had a very different scenario. Now we can look into any entity, as I say, who has made purchases, what is their profile, who has made supply to them, and we can go 5 levels in one go. And the risk, what is the compliance history of each of these person, what is the other information about these persons, it is mind-boggling. So the training at our level also is that we are training our officers that you please analyze this information and be very focused in what you ask for. Still, you will find very general queries coming, but the fact is these queries are being refined in the context of what analysis we do. And since I don't know whether you are aware of the fact that we have come with a physical verification collaborative framework, which means, and this is something which a lot of departments are trying to follow, if I'm looking at a case here and I have to verify suppliers in 10 states, and I can just make a reference and it goes to each one of these units there, and within 10 days I get a report. This has started only 3 months back. So you will see in maybe next 1 month, some this kind of verifications happening where person says, sir, I don't know, but this is a verification I have to do, and this report is going back and it will add back into the main case. So these are new initiatives taken by us. When you break down a very paper-based system and have some kind of a data-driven tax administration, I mean, there's always opportunity for all of us to see that we don't end up into a risk identification which is not in line with what I'm doing. At the same time, we are looking at the compliance of people being at the very highest level, and people will realize, and most of them are realizing that the entire ecosystem which is being created now, by invoices are on government platform, e-way bill is on government platform, payments on government platform, FASTag, the movement of vehicles is on platform. So it is not only for investigation, but even for identifying a high-risk case, this data is very easily used. So please imagine the way you look into a customer credit profile, all this information. And we are also looking at how do we make this data more and more available to others. So this is broadly giving you a theme: taxpayer service delivery, our information management story, voluntary compliance initiatives, very short things, take the feedback and improve, and the assessment function transformation. So just to summarize 4 or 5 points for you, please, whatever filing you're doing other than your return also, look into it, because you are partners with the tax department. So the kind of data which comes in, the PAN number correctness and all, please ensure that is accurate, so that your suppliers and parties don't feel that some kind of a negative intervention from the department. Please update your contact address. Please look into your AIS and TIS. Please give feedback on time so that you have rectified information before you file your return. This is, and we look forward to income tax department. Since you're CFOs, you are coming with new fintech solutions, and give us ideas about what kind of APIs you need. So the way GST has come up with APIs, maybe tax department, I have been receiving requests that we should know that one notice has come. I should be able to, metadata should be populating in my internal compliance database. Can we break down the litigation issues in a systematic manner? So all this can help us manage the, reduce the compliance cost for someone who is ready to take the step to integrate with the income tax department. So there are a lot of potential for us, and since this is something which is about innovation, please free to give ideas. What is the kind of things you want the government to do, from any tax department to do, which will help you comply to taxes in an easier manner, and even the quality of response what you give is also good. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome again. And it was wonderful to hear Mr. Singh and Mr. Kumar for your input and the input, the larger picture that Mr. Singh you painted. Now the CFOs, obviously they would have a lot of questions, I'd imagine, but we'll try and confine ourselves to the tech part of it. And I'd like to begin with you, Ashok. The big picture, the changing role, and the opportunities to grow faster, something that Mr. Kumar mentioned that, everyone's question, why do you need to grow faster? But that need is still there.
So, yeah, that need is there for sure. I was hearing someone who was, kind of putting an analogy that this is accelerator and brake. And to drive a car, both are needed, Sometimes CFOs are seen as a brake or, I don't know, accelerator. But if you want to drive a car successfully, you need both. Without any one of them, you are bound to meet some accident. And I think CFO role, as you also mentioned, Ashutosh, in our earlier conversation, and Sujeet mentioned particularly, that we are finding ourselves getting involved in every aspect of business. The CEOs who treat CFOs as right-hand man, I think these are the organizations which are successful and more sustainable organizations to my mind. Wherever finance is left to only the earlier role of accounting, reporting, those organizations are not growing, not progressing. So, yeah, that's the changing role of CFO.
The challenge with technology. Vidya, a traditional company. So 3M, for a lot of you who may not know, one of the iconic companies in the US, my personal earliest memories go with that book, that fantastic book that Tom Peters has written, some of you may remember, In Search of Excellence. And 3M is extensively quoted in that book for the excellence in their practices. Now, that kind of a traditional company is now obviously accelerating towards a tech transformation. How do you drive that? And while I ask that question, the finance function for it.
Yeah, see, I should say that technology is a very great innovation of humankind now, because it really shaped our thinking and it's changed our lives, technology. And then in this digital world, we also find ourselves changed from a simple version of human life into a different what we are now. So that also has happened. We can have a simple life. Always you need to know like what has changed and how do you cope with the change. Coping with the change is not a simple task. You need to get it done. But it also has helped us in globalization. Now whole world is just one platform. Needless like where you are, whether you're in India, or you're in US, you're in Japan, you're in China, you're just connected on a real-time basis. I should say we start our discussions some with the APAC country somewhere 6:36 India time, and then we end up with US discussions 12:31 midnight. So it's all like we are all in the same world and we are just discussing everyday basis. So that's how things have changed for us. And then, of course, this technology, finance has embraced technology, because without technology, I think we can never be, or we would not have reached the place where we are now. So we, as he said, now it is no longer just finishing your financials and reporting. So as a CFO, even the regulators are expecting accuracy, reliability, investors, regulators, all the stakeholders. So you have to see your numbers are accurate, reliable, so you need automations. And now we are able to proudly say that we finish all our monthly information flow to US third working day, and then they are able to generate consolidated picture globally with 7 working days. It's all possible because everything is integrated, everything is automated, and then all the standard reports are thrown out to different businesses. So each one has access to whatever data they need, and therefore it also adds much value to business. And we also see CFOs sitting next to the CEOs all the time, they feel very comfortable. You are always there in the strategic decision round table. So that's how I think finance has really evolved, and then we are one of the great pillars to the organization growth, and we are able to do compliance. I should really thank the government that they have really done a lot of work, and they are ahead of the corporates, I should say. We are now trying to cope up with the government information, and as Mr. Sinha was saying, we are having real-time kind of virtual assessments are happening. It's much faster, the speed is there, accuracy is there. So everything is happening at the same time. So that is what the change we are seeing now.
Pillars, since she used the word the technology pillars, for the CFO, what are some of those technology pillars which will help him work closely with the needs for the business and then drive the change, maybe at an accelerated pace, Ashwin?
Yeah. See, I work with Portea Medical, which is a startup. We are about an 8-year-old company. So, in this kind of a startup situation, the CFO is not merely a reporting function. We actually are the driving function, in the sense that it's my belief that to be a successful CFO, you not only need to know the classical CFO knowledges, but you also need to know technology, because we have an opportunity to work with technology and actually to drive functions and drive business. That is the opportunity we have in a startup. For example, I will just tell you, we had a mandate from the board to explore a IPO. So we filed our DRHP on June 30th. So I mean, when you file a DRHP, you need to file your financial reporting and all that stuff. You need to file financial reporting which is less than 180 days. So we filed our financials as at 31st December. But as per SEBI guidelines, we need to provide 3-year full financials plus stub period financial, which is April to December. So we did do all that. But what was the enabler which enabled us to do this in a short period of time? It's because the window is only 180 days when we have to give all this information. So I think we need to anticipate what kind of requirement will come in the future, what kind of technology we need to deal with, because the technology is the biggest differentiator. Now, what we had done was that we had implemented an ERP across the company in 2019. So this actually enabled us to deliver all this information that was required to file the DRHP. Now, also filing DRHP, it is becoming difficult in the sense the government is asking for a lot of KPIs and a lot of information, key performance indicators. So we need to collate all this and then provide it and then have a successful DRHP. And see, therefore, the role of the CFO, you need to embrace technology. Not just embrace technology, but also drive technology. You need to take ownership for certain aspects of the business and drive the business itself. And that is an opportunity that I believe that as a CFO of a startup, you must take it and then drive it.
Okay, so that's very, very interesting. So Venkatraman, the role of the CFO merging with the CDO of sorts, is that something that's happening, or probably he's wearing another hat? The role of the CFO and the role of the Chief Data Officer, so merging of sorts, is it what he's suggesting?
I'll try to give you an answer, maybe
Sure.
Western independent.
Sure.
You've literally put the CFOs under the glare and on the spotlight. I'll just take reference of what I heard from Sanjeev and Sujeet. Both of them finance professionals. One is an operational person, that's what by his own admission. But they both spoke about technology.
Can you just take this mic, maybe?
Both Sanjeev and Sujeet spoke a lot about technology and the expectation that
Okay, we can try it.
the expectation that they have from the chief financial officer or the finance function. It became very clear that technology is ubiquitous now. It's no longer, I would say, what do you expect a successful CFO to be? He should have good negotiation skills, good communication skills, good presentation skills, understand the business, understand the finance function, and should be able to deliver on the job. But one thing that's missing is technology, capability of understanding technology. Technology, then, when you talk about it, you touched upon data. Data is one sliver of the whole technology stack that the CFO should be able to deal with. Where I would suggest is, technically, most of the times the CFOs look at a problem and then look for the technology to solve the problem. Rather than that, we should embrace the technology first and see how that technology can help deliver our jobs on a daily basis. That's a change that has to fundamentally happen. Because nobody told me that I need to have good negotiation skills if I have to become a successful CFO.
You need to keep the mic closer, please. Yeah.
Nobody told me that I need to be I should be a successful negotiator to be a successful CFO, right? You took that for granted. Similar is the case with technology. I need to now embrace technology. I need to be in the forefront of technology. I was just looking at my own experience, 28, 30 years of being in the finance function, and a large part of that as Chief Financial Officer. I must have implemented about 12 ERP solutions and multiple BI solutions, multiple data interchange platforms. And hearing Sanjeev talked for about 15, 20, 30 minutes, but he talked only about technology. He didn't talk about anything else. That shows how much it's technology-led rather than finance-led. So for a successful CFO, he has to be technology-led, which then goes to business, understand the business, understands technology, and then be able to lead from there. So when you say Chief Data Officer, absolutely, given. You need to understand data, you need to understand how data plays up, how it rolls up, how it feeds into multiple other platform situations, and what are the technologies available to, massage them. Data, it's technology democratizes all these systems that you have around you, the data around you, and you need to be really up there.
Okay. Nirvikar, so since technology is driving it, how can the CFO be the craftsman really? Because a lot of these processes, a lot of these systems are driven as an automated process. So you really need to craft things together to tell that larger corporate story. How does the CFO do that? How does technology help him do that? Yeah.
So, that's where Venkat pointed out that CFO has to keep his eyes and ears open. There is so much happening in the finance field, all the new age fintechs, the kind of solutions that are coming up. You can actually, and as compared to the ERPs, the monolithic ERPs that used to be implemented in the past, today technology is available in modules. You can pick up a problem and solve the solution and knit together a range of solutions to build something that you need, a custom solution, So I would say the CFO needs to go out, keep talking. I mean, I can give you one example. I was running a Silicon Valley startup a couple of years ago, and I was first time performing the role of CFO. And we had so much of paperwork, manual processes. All it took was I spoke to a lot of CFOs for 2-3 weeks, and I found out what are they doing. And I was able to put together a paperless office within 90 days.
Mm-hmm. So just to mention, since the audience, we'd love to hear questions from you as and when you have it. Please raise your hand. We'll try and take some questions. Try and not make it too many. So please keep the interaction happening. So I'd love to hear as and when we go along, maybe throw in a question in with. Okay, there's already a question. So can we have a mic there, sir? If you can identify yourself and stick to the question, please. If you can have the mic there, please.
Good afternoon.
Okay, we'll continue. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So my name is Vidya Iyer. I work for HTC as a director for the SAP practice. The question here is, ESG, everywhere the ESG related accounting and the measurements. So can you please tell us what are the amendments is going to come for the ESG accounting and reporting side?
I'm not sure. The amendments that will come, I'm not sure.
See, ESG, as of now, we are required to do a reporting. In the director's report, we need to add what are we doing as a company under environment, sustainability and reporting. So all the corporates are actually getting into different aspects, different areas to see where are we. For example, how are we communicating to the customers? Then there are different areas that we have seen through, and then where are we in those areas with respect to environment? What are we doing with respect to environment? What are we doing with respect to customer complaints? So there are list of things that we need to address. So now what the companies are actually doing is they are getting into the requirements, the expectations, and what is the company, where are we there? Are we better, or do we need to do certain aspects to it? And then we are trying to work it out on that, because it will become like part of our reporting itself.
Okay, so just to add, next year onwards, April 2001 onwards, reporting for some of these functions is mandatory, and it'll only grow as you go along. So that's going to happen. Next question, just a little bit on evaluation, and I'd like your input on this. Evaluation of the technologies that are emerging. Some of them may be a little about hype, and some of them may be actual technologies that will go and take businesses ahead. How does the CFO evaluate that for the future?
See, my experience of evaluating various technologies is that I basically look at return on investment. If I'm going to look at technology, I'm going to ask myself, what is that return I'm getting when I invest in that particular technology? There are certain things which are given, like you want to automate routine activities, you want to automate manual work. I mean, those are all given. But where it becomes difficult to really evaluate, at least in a startup, is when you go for a moonshot. When somebody says, look, I want to do this and I want to bring this technology, I want to track all the, I want to track all the vitals of my patients. I want that, understand, what's happening. So this becomes a little bit esoteric. We don't know what are the outcomes and all that stuff. So there, I guess that we need to look at the pulse, whether it will really work or not, because that's from a startup kind of a situation. We take bets. So you take an informed bet and then go ahead. But then when it comes to certain other technologies which are more certain, then we obviously look at whether that will give the return, whether the implementation partner is he available. Then we also look at successful implementations that particular technology in other organizations, and then we also internally we look at our own capabilities, whether we can run the technology, whether we have the manpower to do it. It's one thing that I want to tell is that especially in startups, when you jump into a new technology, you have to also give yourself time. You need to ensure that you have the right team. You have to assemble the team. Once you assemble the team, you also give the team time so that they understand your business, and then they'll be able to contribute, adopt technologies faster, and then implement it. So this is my take on how I look at technology. Bottom line, return on investment.
Okay, that's very clearly defined. Ashok, given what Titan did and the way it grew during the last 2 years or so, how would you explain that growth, and how was technology a multiplier for you? Because the 2 years have been very good for Titan.
So, fortunately for Titan, we started investing in our digital journey 5-6 years back. And that became very, very handy when the COVID struck. And we were very quickly kind of get into motion. I think data investment is huge, we have customer loyalty program, and the quality of data, and even Sanjeev referred about quality of data, the quality of data which we have about our client, and then through the big data analytics, predictive analytics, hypothesis, we are actually able to almost predict that given the lifestyle, given the stage of life the customer is, what is the propensity or what is the best thing for her to kind of think about, depending on the anniversaries, marriages of the family members and everything we have with us. And that is where we never make cold calls or SMS to our customers, because we exactly know that if I am reaching out to Ashutosh is at this stage and most propensity to buy or gift to someone loved one would be this. So the person who actually have dealt with you in the past, that person is only going to call you based on the data analytics engine which is supporting the person, that okay, please reach out to Ashutosh with this kind of thing. And that is working very well for us. Of course, now the data has to be real time. Forget about monthly closings, etc. Particularly sales operations data, they have to be real time, and that is where your platforms, your engines have to be, which are in-memory engine, and every day basis, every hour basis. On Dhanteras Din, which is a big day for jewelers, every minute we have what is selling, which store is selling. Every hour celebrations happen in company, of course, because you guys are buying and we see our sales soaring up. So that kind of level of data and integration and visualization of data is happening in Titan. And I think that's a competitive advantage for us.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
that also, Venkatraman, the way some of these business intelligence tools are available to companies which may not be at the size of Titan. 3 billion plus market cap, 3.5 billion or so. Sorry, 3.5. I've got my numbers. Revenue. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that kind of company may not just be able to afford it. It is also the smaller companies that can do it. And what can it do to their business?
I again go back to what the gentleman talked about return on investment. Sorry, Ashwin. That my biggest concern when I get into technology investment is how quickly the technology becomes obsolete. So before I start, there is a new guy who is out to eat the first software guy's lunch. So something which took 2 years to do, another guy does within let's say half the time at half the cost. So it's a constant need to stay ahead of the curve to know what's the technology that's available to you to make sense of all the data and all the information that's being generated by our systems. So smaller companies have lots of startups, SaaS-based offerings. SaaS has kind of democratized software availability across companies. You just have to first Google. You start with Google, it'll give you an idea where to start. That's what I said. You have a problem, you look for a solution. That's what typically CFOs are doing. But if you are in the field, keep looking at technology. What's AI doing? What's the automation that's happening these days on invoice processing? What's the automation that's happening on, let's say, all the data that's collected? What's happening? Wow. What's happening in terms of the automation tools that are available in the market? SaaS-based offerings that's available, like Sujeet, Udaan. That's an offering that's there. I have to go and understand what they can do for companies like us. Same thing for what it can do for companies like Titan. So the CFO has to be ahead in the technology game. He needs to be aware of what's there. And there are so many of these tools that are available today, which can be rolled out quickly to get the output that we're talking about and meet the ROI requirements that Mr. Ashwin talked about, which is why I said that's the need for companies like Happiest Minds.
Okay, so you also help companies get smarter. And hopefully, and just to mention, Sujeet, I can't see him here, but about 30 lakh merchants on their platform. So they really go deep into the market to give smaller businesses the opportunity to get probably digitized, turn things around faster. Nirvikar, then with smaller companies, the opportunities that smaller companies are happening now have, and more so because this room is full of finance professionals, how can they drive that change in a smarter way for their own functions?
Pointed it out, there are so many solutions. I mean, our company, for one, also works very closely with the small and medium businesses. And really, the pillars that I feel are transparency, that you know what's happening, visibility, real-time visibility, and control. So these are really parameters. Again, as Ashok said, closes happen now on by this hour, by the second, not really at the end of the month or after a week. So those are really the solutions that you get visibility on your cash flows, you get visibility on your inventories, you get controls like fraud controls. Again, we've seen situations because payables is one space which sees maximum frauds and diversion of money. And if your controls are not good, those are typical areas. So that's where all these solutions really bring. For me, the mantra is transparency, visibility, and control.
Okay. Also, the question of we spoke about that briefly. The CFO also donning the hat of the Chief Digital Officer. So, who controls the data? I mean, while traditionally it's been with the CFO, does that team get wider so that you pull more out of that, Venkatraman? Because you help, again, why I'm asking is because you help companies change the way.
When you look at data, you have the
Okay, can we get an alternate mic, please? Maybe that mic may be able to help. Yeah, just 1 second. Yeah, we'll try and get the mic. Okay, it's not working. Can it? Okay, just can we do a test? No, it's not.
So under the GDPR regulations, you need to have a chief data officer. Typically, it starts with identifying a person who is in charge of the data in an organization, and it falls under compliance and rolls up to the CFO's organization. At least that's what I've seen. You have the chief security officer today. You have seen what's happened at AIMS recently. You had all the data been blocked by ransomware or whatever for 7 days. It's really put the whole operations of AIMS at risk. Who does it roll up to? Essentially, it should roll up to the CFO or the compliance officer. So to that extent, the chief financial officer's responsibility includes compliance, and to that extent, the data and the compliance also rolls up. But that's more of the compliance aspect of it, Ashutosh. If you look at business support, who's going to really make sense of all the data that's there in the organization? Because if you look at a BU structure or if you look at a business, they are all looking at only their part of the business. The typical people who look at the entire business and the financials it rolls up to, it is the CEO of the organization and the CFO. And automatically it falls under the CFO's umbrella, and he says, you know what, all of this data rolls up to you, why don't you make sense of it for me? So I'm sure the CEO of Titan is going to ask Mr. Sonthalia, can you make all the sense of all the data that's rolling up from all the stores that's coming up? Which is what Sujeet will also ask his CFO at some point in time, because there will be 30 lakh vendors that you talked about, customers, but who makes sense of all of this? So I think rightfully so, the data officer role should come under the CFO. I'm not batting for larger responsibility here, but I think it makes sense to be under that umbrella.
Okay, would you like to add to that? Why I ask is, again, given the way Titan encompasses so many businesses, how does that, ultimately that data drive the business? Ultimately that has to.
So, we, with our experience, we have, of course, a Chief Digital and Information Officer and a very good tech analytics team under him. And very strong partnership between finance department and these two teams, because, the whole data coding and designing and what granularity we need. Otherwise, there are bytes, megabytes and trillion bytes of data which can completely confuse you. So I think finance put the design into the place, the coding of the data, at what level we need to capture the data which will be relevant, and more from not the financial data but the operational data, the ops KPI, like from the, if you talk about our stores, the per square feet inventory density, the per square feet revenue, that kind of granularity. And unless you codify the data at that level, that information would not be available. And that is what then brings efficiency to information. So I would say it's a very strong partnership. I would not bring the whole tech part under the finance. Finance need to understand technology, but there are great guys, who are partnering with you, and sometimes great companies who are partnering with you, like Happiest Mind, to get the job done.
I also tend to agree with him, because even in our case, we get the medical history of some patients, so the patient data becomes very important, and it's very important that we have proper firewalls and proper security around that. So in our company, it is under the Chief Technology Officer, and of course, as you rightly said, we also work in tandem. But at the end of the day, the security of the data, the digital data, is with the Chief Technology Officer, and it plays a very key role.
I'll also come to something that Mr. Singh referred to, on the way companies approach the data to be going to, for the various, for the indirect tax part, for the direct tax part, and some of the compliances part where the regular data has to go. What changes for you? If I'll probably ask the question to everyone as well. If I can begin with you, please.
Yeah, see, first of all, I must confess that the way the government is moving, they are moving real time. In fact, I was sharing with the team some time back, we had an issue, just yesterday, wherein we had done some transfer of, intercity transfer of stock. So it came through train, and then it was in Bangalore, and then we had to engage a local transport and then move it to our godown. And we had to we engaged something like a third-party transporter to move it. Of course, it came in through a Weibull, and Weibull has got two parts, part A and part B. Part B is where you put in the vehicle number. So we put in the vehicle number by 11:45 a.m. That's when the train came, and the communication came into our back end, to the back end, and the person sitting there put in that vehicle number. But the particular consignment was stopped by the GST enforcement, and then they had stopped our consignment at 11:30. So the difference between 11:30 a.m. and 11:45 a.m. I got a charge sheet. So this is amazing. I mean, this is absolutely real time. And even in case of GSTR 3B reconciliation, it is becoming completely real time. I can tell you there was a large bill which came to us from one of the vendors. So that bill was raised at the end of the month. So my accounting team accounted it in the next month. But then when we did the GSTR 3B reconciliation, there is a mismatch in the input tax. So we had to correct it, and then we had to go back to the previous month and do it. So when government is real time, so it is also very important that we also become real time. All our data, all our information has to become real time. So that's what is the endeavor. So what we try to do. I mean, I am saying that not only in terms of the government data, the statutory data, that we have to look at it from a real time basis, but we are also looking at all our operational key metrics, all from a real time basis. So we have a centralized system, so we run business intelligence to that, and then we have dashboards created, so which provide all the real time information. I'm sure Ashok just said what are the kind of real time information that Titan looks at. So even companies like us, which are in home care, so we look at our clinicians, where they are on a real time basis. If there is a delay in reaching the customer, then can we proactively inform the customer that the clinician will be delayed. So all such real time analytics, everything flows in. I think whether it is statutory or whether it is running a good company, world class company, you need real time data. So now that the pressure from the government is also towards real time, so there is it's fait accompli now. You just have to adopt technologies so that you stay agile, and then you stay nimble, and you stay real time. So earlier people used to say go online. Now it's online and real time, and that's how I look at it.
Vidya, the government part that was mentioned, how does the company, while your company has the resources, smaller companies need to prepare for that? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so it is very important that whichever size of the company you deal with, you have to kind of get your data well organized, as well as you also need to know the different requirements from the tax departments like GST and income tax, because they will have their own requirements, and it comes at a later point in time. It may not be immediate same year, but then they ask for data 4 years back or 10 years back. So we have to have all these data collected, stored, and then also be able to give it to them at short notice. So therefore, as the startup grows, even though you're small in size, you will grow in future. So you have to also have this, be mindful of the data requirement at various points in time, and also be having all your reconciliations with your suppliers, with your customers in place, so that you are able to provide all these information at short notice. The other part, what we also find now is the GST assessments have started, and since GST is like state based, so every GST officer is asking for a kind of entity kind of a report saying that in this state what are the sales you made and what are the purchases you got from other states, from this state. So it means like you're treating every state like one entity. So therefore, we have to be having all these automations also in place as we go forward. So I don't think it is an investment. It is more to keep us afloat when we are kind of not going down.
Okay. Titan, again, I go back to the scale, because that's the different scale that we're talking about. In terms of ensuring that compliance is preparing for that and ensuring that, that word that you often hear, that single source of truth is maintained.
Yeah, so I think, the great takeaway for me, in fact, today, after listening Sanjeev, was that this whole third-party due diligence, and I'm digressing a little bit from your question, that we don't pay enough attention that parties with whom we are dealing with. And now the departments, all the departments, tax department, whether direct, indirect, they are getting integrated so much that if your parties are not compliant, then for you, it's basically going to be losses, that you will not able to take credit, etc. So that due diligence, and clearly understanding that departments are not only within GST or income tax, but they are getting integrated all across, and they are sharing data seamlessly, they are analyzing data seamlessly. So the only way to grow and sustain in business is that be trustworthy, be transparent, pay your taxes, focus on growth and pay your taxes, rather than trying to manage those things. But coming to your point of single source of truth is very important, and particularly the companies which have been in existence for long years, and various businesses comes at different point of time and having different systems, and then they are setting up layers of now e-com and analytics. Sometimes we do face this problem that our e-com system is showing some data, our ERPs are showing some other data, and those reconciliations of inventory, sales, cash, all these things which are flowing all over, and particularly when you are becoming global, then this becomes very, very complex. And I think only technology can help. No amount of, while designs are important, the way you conceptualize, but technology is going to be your savior in all these things.
Smaller companies kind of solve these issues. So the best part is, I think these are the best of the times. If you look at some of the venture databases, there are over 1,000 companies globally who work purely in compliance and fraud and all of such requirements. And I think in India, last I saw was there are over 200 companies that work in this space. So all the new age fintechs which provide these modular solutions. So I go back to my earlier point that the beauty of today's technology is it gives you so many solutions. All you have to do is just go out, look at your use cases, your needs, and assemble those together. And with the help of APIs and all that, you can actually, a small company can actually do enterprise grade system, customized system very, very easily and at a very low fixed cost.
Okay, so very interesting. So that's exactly what I was going to ask you, because ultimately these smaller companies will tomorrow become the bigger ones, and some of them will probably grow, and probably some, Venkat, you'll be working with some of those companies hopefully, and helping them get that technology edge. Now for tomorrow, what should some of these companies be at the starting point with? What should they start with so that they can have the seeds right for tomorrow's growth? What would you say to that?
Limiting myself to the finance part, because that's the mandate of this discussion. My take would be like
of course, to the finance
about the APIs that are available. Just to give you an example, real-time example, everybody has been talking about moonlighting. How did companies figure out moonlighting? It is through the PF database.
Yes.
Right? So look at the information. That's a single source of the truth, and me, a technology company, having to rely on the government database to tell me that this guy is working in 2 companies. Sanjeev talked about the APIs that are available. I've gone through the faceless assessment. It's been brilliant. We have got refunds on time. GST, everybody is talking good things about it. Obviously, it could be a lot more better, which is what Sujeet was saying, and I'm sure steps are being taken. So there are lots of things that are happening, and on a comparative basis, because we do business in multiple other countries, I can tell you our systems, or the government systems that are, at least the central government systems today that we have, are really far ahead. W-2 forms in the US, I still have to sign them physically. So I'm actually pulling my hair out. Here, digital signatures are being used. Your Digital Act is there. Your IT Act clearly says what cannot be signed digital. We've got Hello Sign, Dropbox Sign. Most of our documents, 99% of my documents today are done digitally, thanks to the infrastructure that has been set up. Same as the e-Mudra token services given by the government of India, so, or in partnership with the Tata Group or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is, the government is going really fast. On a comparative basis, we are doing business in multiple countries, and I'm saying a lot of them. Japan, yesterday we were discussing that if you want to set up a business in Japan, I need to still go around making a rubber stamp. and I'm not joking. So I need to figure out a rubber stamp in Japanese in blue color and red color. Otherwise, you can't sign a document. It's as simple as that.
Really?
Really. You have a red rubber stamp, and that's what's required. And here, I've got income tax department sending me a notice with a 12-digit number, like he said. If the number has to be quoted, it's genuine, it's clear. I went for my passport. I had my passport completely digitally done. It's ready, because the signature on this one was verified, digitally verified. So I'm just saying, signature digitally verified versus rubber stamp in blue and red. So we are going far ahead. Businesses have to keep pace. Sanjeev talked about APIs. Like I said, I have to start thinking technology backwards or forwards. I have to see what are those APIs which I can use in my business, maybe to do due diligence of my vendors. Very important, something that I picked up from today's discussion. So there is so much of data out there, so many things that are outside available. There are companies which give you salary in advance basis.
Yeah.
It's a business model which they follow, and they rely on the credit verification methodology that Sanjeev talked about, or the credit companies give out as information and data interchange. So what I'm trying to say is, it's for us to now catch up, and there are a lot of software companies which have created very easy to use solutions to access them. That may be point solutions, but there will be larger companies like us who will integrate those point solutions into larger platforms, and we'll make it accessible to small, medium, and large companies.
Okay, since Mr. Singh mentioned about, the larger opportunity and, the point that you mentioned about in the context of Japan, is that also that big opportunity where Indian companies could, along with partnership with government, where you could actually do things which are far ahead of time in the global context?
I was about to make that point. Maybe it's not, again, the mandate, but 30% of the cost of taxes goes into tax administration. But with the kind of data that they are going to generate, and data is the new oil or the soil or the oxygen that we discussed about, I'm sure the government will soon be able to have a business model. UPI is today free. Even if you make it 10 paise, I'm sure with the number of volumes that we are talking about, huge amount of money. The kind of data that they're going to share with people, pre-filled forms, fine, that's their duty, the government's duty to their citizen. But when they give this data to me to do credit verification of my employee, I'm sure they can charge 30 rupees, 50 rupees. So you're talking about numbers, 11 crore, 12 crore numbers that we're talking about. We are seeing a model where the government will soon, I think, the next 5-6 years could be making more money on data than on taxes. Happy to work with the department on that one.
I would say that you should not ignore compliance thinking that you're small and you can get away with that, because the other part is when you go for valuations, when you want to have investors to grow your business, so the main thing they see is due diligence, how you have performed, how have you been so transparent, how have you kind of taken care of all your regulatory requirements. So it should be part and parcel of your growth. You should not ignore it and say, I will take care of it after 5 years or 10 years. So that will not work now. So my guidance is always understand the compliance requirements and build it into the system itself, irrespective of the size of the organization.
Okay, Ashok, so a lot of finance professionals here who would want to be CFOs tomorrow.
Right.
And people who listen to you on television screens as we go sometime later, what would your advice be for them to prepare for the CFO role of tomorrow? And given your experience also as a CFO.
So 2-3 things I would just quickly summarize. That the finance role or CFO role from justifying the past versus influencing the future has shifted. So it's not transitioning, that you are no more just justify historical numbers why they happened. You have to influence the future. So that's one. Earlier I used to tell my young colleagues that the business connect is very important. Just don't be looking at numbers, because numbers gets generated by some of the business operations, and your grasp on what is generating these numbers is extremely important, and be connected to business. But nowadays I say, while be connected to business, but be understanding the technology piece very, very well, because that is becoming so important. And in CFO role, there are certain core things which are not going to disappear. like the core of reporting, compliance, governance, risk management. Nobody is going to pardon you if something goes wrong there, because every fingers are only on CFO, including government, looks at CFO. You are KMP and you are kind of asked by the government authorities. So, and the whole digital age, which is giving so much efficiency and streamlining, but it is generating a lot of risks also. And CFO is the right person to be aware of that. The whole data privacy, cyber security. CFO is the guy who can really drive organization to manage these risks in time very well. And I think Vidya said very well that don't ignore compliance at any stage of your career. So that's core you have to be, and then you have to build whole the strategic outlook, technology outlook, business partnering. So CFO role is becoming challenging day by day, but I think it's enjoyable also.
Nirvikar, you've had a very good platform, seeing it from Silicon Valley. Probably you've sensed some of those changes in that kind of a situation as well. But for tomorrow's companies, how critical, how can that the CFO or the finance professional sift through the process-driven role and then the imagineering kind of a role where he's imagining and driving the business?
One thing that I have seen, I think India is probably ahead on a lot of things, the entire digital journey. So really India is probably teaching the world. But maybe more from a CFO's perspective, as I see, compare perhaps the Valley area, the CFOs are much more dreamers and visionaries, so do a lot more of driving the future and partner with the CEO on possibilities and the size of the dreams. I think that is something we're already seeing that happening in a big way in India, but I think that's another way, because a lot of times, especially if you refer to the founders world, some founders are more technological experts and they cannot understand what is possible. And that's where an accomplished CFO can really add colors and make the dream even bigger. And as Sujeet also, was kind to point out to the role that Kalyan played. So I think that's really maybe one transition that can happen even more. It's already happening, I would say.
Also, and since you represent Portea Medical, I'd like to understand from you, again, a company that's grown in the last few years, and now, as you were mentioning, also looking at a possible IPO. For companies that are transitioning to an IPO, how do they think differently? Because the compliances, the detailing of your finances is huge, where you have to satisfy the market regulator.
Yeah, absolutely. See, when you are a CFO of an aspiring IPO company, the role of CFO is slightly different. See, what happens is the CFO has to be a macro to micro man, in the sense that you need to understand the industry. We are in the healthcare industry. So as a CFO, I need to understand the dynamics of the healthcare industry. Then I need to go one level down, understand my own business. And most of the companies will have multiple businesses, like we have healthcare services, we have medical equipment rental services, medical equipment trading, we have specialty pharma trading. So basically we provide end-to-end healthcare service for a patient who is getting well at home. So I need to understand all these lines of business, and not only these businesses, then I have to get into one level down. We have to look at geographical spread, north, south, east, west, how the businesses are doing. Then get into city-wise profitability, how each city is behaving. So this is the kind of macro to micro that is expected, and you also have to be absolutely technologically enabled. I mean, it's not about understanding technology and looking at technology from a distance. Actually, you need to imagine a solution, imagine the technology, what you can do for your business. For example, when we have a medical equipment rental business, we moved it to a complete ERP solution, and finance was the team which was leading it. So we completely moved it from independent systems into one integrated system, where service order comes automatically, wherein the assets get picked up, then it goes to the patient house, and then it comes back. When the patient asks for a return of the equipment, a service request, the return service request gets billed, and then it goes back to the patient, and then the equipment comes back. So the entire flow was actually imagined, designed, and then built by the finance team. So as a CFO, you just don't only look at numbers, but also look at how you can add value to the business. You need to be a business driver.
Okay, any further questions? So before okay, we have some questions coming, sir. And I'll come to you, sir, because we missed yours. Please, if you can identify yourself and stick to the question, please.
Yeah, my name is Joe Thomas. I represent Virtual CIO Consulting, where we provide wisdom to make IT work. So that's it. So my question is, since we are talking about innovation, and we have two CFOs from a manufacturing firm, are you all thinking about factories where your employees can work from home and control it?
Okay, Vidya maybe can work from home.
Okay.
Vidya was just mentioning, okay, so why don't you take the question, please?
Yeah, I would not say that we are fully prepared that they sit at home and work. But during COVID times, we really had this challenge of people coming in and working. So what we have done is we have categorized activities where you have to be there at your workplace, and where it is possible that you do remote working. And we have kind of come out with some solutions that will help employees as well as keep the schedules going.
Okay, I have, sure, please.
Because I have factories, in Titan, and we have stores which are physical format, apart from online e-com. And I must say we are not great fan of work from home. We believe when the people come together, the discussions and energies are at different level, the brainstormings are at different level. So we are not at all kind of breaking our head that how to enable factories to work from home. We are delighted to have people back and kind of working.
And customers also come to your store.
So you are right. So one thing which has happened that as far as the corporate functions are concerned, they are perfectly enabled. Lot of flexibility in thinking has come in to accept work from home and provide that flexibility to employees. But on manufacturing, you are raising a right point that should we also start thinking that if another COVID comes, can we manufacture? And maybe, yeah, it's worth
God help
that
us,
point.
but
Yeah.
I hope we don't have another. So since we are talking in that context, Nirvikar, the systems have to be in place, something that you referred to, and the thinking of the top management. Also for the manufacturing companies, very important for the oxygen of the company, the finance function.
Right.
That needs to be in place for tomorrow's preparedness. What would you say?
No, absolutely. Finance is really like the blood in a human body. Unless the flows are happening in the right manner, the whole machine can stop. So it's absolutely important. And in the Valley also, when we work with startups, the first thing you want to tell people is to set up your financial system, your flows, because if you cannot do that, the first thing you do when you form a company is pay for the incorporation, right? So it starts with that, and if you do not solve that right at the beginning, then you will spend a lot more time trying to figure out the mess or sort it in looking back rather than looking forward. So I think that's absolutely essential, putting together a financial architecture on day one, and using a lot of technology so that it can be done with less people and less errors. And that's exactly what we enable and help companies, startups, and SMBs that really put in place financial rails at inception, so that you don't face the issues later on.
And very importantly, with the security that is needed in today's world, given the realities.
Oh, yes. I mean, security, one is IT security, but I can also give you an example of fraud. I've had instances where a startup's accounting team, which did not have system in place, actually bought a car for themselves out of company money. So.
Oh, okay. You need not get into that. Any further questions? We can talk about that offline. Okay, sir. So we can come to you first, please. Just 1 second. We'll just get the mic to you. Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah, I am Ramamurthy, sir. Can I ask one question to IT Commissioner? Is it possible? This is regarding tax.
Okay,
Everybody
so
is
we'll try and get a mic. to
Everybody
Mr.
is
Singh.
interested in this question. Sir, this, this tax slab, compared to 10 years back, the people coming to the tax net has increased. Is it not that we should reduce the tax slab or increase the, like a 10 lakhs and above, you have only one tax? Can you do this?
Okay, so
Yeah,
I don't
anything.
think Mr. Singh can decide that. It is a
Is there only a whether government is debating all this as we increase the tax people? This is the only broad question.
So this can't. I don't think, Mr. Singh, you can answer that question. It's a decision of the government. Yes. So we'll have to go to the finance minister to take a call on
Anyhow,
that.
I have one more question to the panelist.
Okay.
I am also Titan. I am also a shareholder. The Titan started as a watch company. You have completely transformed to jewelry. Now major business is coming from the jewelry. How you transformed, how CFO is adopting to this?
Okay. Would you like to answer that question in brief?
So very briefly, I think while not only watch to jewelry, jewelry to eye care to fragrances, fashion accessories, and now in international business. So that's the evolution of the company, that's the innovation of the company. We are very obsessed about the number of customers. So while 85% right now business comes from jewelry, but only 10% customer comes through jewelry. So suppose if I serve 20 million customers in a year, only 2 million comes from jewelry, and we love the remaining 18 million customers as well, because they are the same customer who are kind of buying. So we are a lifestyle company. That is how we define ourselves. Women is center of our universe. So any place we can find to adorn her and feel her good, we will kind of keep innovating on that and working on that. While men are not excluded, we continue to serve them. But yeah, center of universe is women. Yeah?
Yeah, the sunglasses that you make, the men also wear them. Yeah. Any further questions?
Yeah, hello. Hi,
yes,
I'm
please,
Sudhir.
sir, if you can identify yourself.
I'm Sudhir. I'm a technologist working with the Web3 think tank, started by my son. And I have a question for the panelists here. And thank you for delivering an excellent discussion here. The question I have comes from a context that finance is, the efficiency of finance is critical to every company, whether it's small, large, or medium-sized company. Now, the large companies have benefit of having SAPs, Oracle Financials, and that kind of software supporting them. The small companies have Tally, and so there are a variety of solutions that are available to the financial world which they use to manage. So I would request the panelists to share with me what are the innovations within the finance department that they have adopted which has helped them help their companies. The discussion primarily focused on a lot of participation, a positive participation from the CFOs in the other departments. So I would like them to focus on the financial department, if they could share that. Thank you.
Okay. Venkatraman, would you like to begin? Maybe some things that you've done for customers, maybe smaller customers, if you'd like to mention.
Or internally. I think his question was more internal to the finance team. So as simple as getting our payroll automated. It's as old as finance payroll processes, and we've got so many solutions, but we have automated it through multiple steps and processes. Every step adds to the efficiency and the cost improvement, cost reduction of the function. And as a company employing 4,500 plus people across 7 to 8 countries, that's something that we focus on. Fraud detection in hiring people. We've hired people virtually, they work virtually, and they resign virtually. Fraud detection, like what we talked about, how we plug loopholes using internal processes and systems. Timesheet compliance, efficiency management, it just goes on and on. That's what I said. You have a problem, first you look at the technology, you will have a solution there. You need to know how to apply it to the current state of the problem to solve that problem, and then make sure that it then rolls into your architecture that you have set up for the finance function. So like Mr. Ashwin said, you need to have the architecture in place. Keep on looking for, you can call them APIs, you can call them apps, you can call them simple standalone systems, but look how they can improvise your existing function and help you do better.
So is this within the ambit of the SAPs and Oracle Financials, or something that you continuously try to improve, or how is it? Because
So
I don't see most of the CFOs moving towards the newer technology like the Web3s and the others, the blockchain and the smart contracts, and primarily because the larger financial software providers haven't got there. Is that a problem, or is there another reason?
I think when you say that, you're making an assumption that people are not looking at the new technologies. Then companies like Udaan, companies like iCertis, companies like eMudra would not have had a business case. They have a solid business case because the customers are the finance function or the business function, and they are seriously looking at those to automate and make their experience running the finance function a lot more seamless. So I would like to think that the SAPs, Oracles, when you are referring to them by name, you are thinking of the plumbing. The plumbing is essentially the basic data entry, which can be today a Zoho, it can be any of those
Hundreds
SaaS
of other
platforms.
names. Hundreds of other names. Any other questions? One last question before we wrap up. Nobody wants to ask the last question? Okay. Okay then, we'll wrap up. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for your time, for being with us. And very importantly, I'd like to thank everyone on the panel also because of the way we are looking at working together with the government and the context that you mentioned about the way the government itself is changing, so that tomorrow it should be good for all of us as citizens and of course for the finance function as well. Thank you so much for everyone being with us.